The RDCO Agricultural Strategy Background Report Public Open House was held November 3rd, 2022. The RDCO and project team acknowledges that this event is being held on the traditional and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. We recognize, honor, and respect the presence of Indigenous people past, present, and future. The RDCO's agriculture plan is being led by the Regional District of Central Okanagan. The RDCO Agricultural Plan project is funded in part by the Local Government Partnership Program, with funding provided by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the Government of British Columbia, through programs delivered by the Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC. The RDCO Agriculture Background Report is being prepared jointly by Upland Agricultural Consulting and Urban Food Strategies. Through this open house, you'll be led through some information regarding the RDCO's agricultural strategy process, the purpose of the project, and some statistics about agriculture in the RDCO, as well as some mapping information that has been compiled to help inform the background report. The purpose of the open house is twofold. Firstly is to showcase information about agriculture in the RDCO to the public, and also, secondly, to seek input into the strengths and challenges for the entire sector. The information gathered through all of the engagement will be put together into an engagement summary report, which will then go on to inform phase 2 of the agricultural strategy, which is the development of a vision, objectives, goals, recommendations, and the implementation strategy. Why is it important to consider agricultural strategies on a regional context? We know, for example, that the District of Lake Country, the City of Kelowna, and the City of West Kelowna all have their own respective agricultural plans or strategies. However, taking the perspective regionally can provide a coordinated strategy that takes into consideration issues that cross municipal boundaries. For example, there may be opportunities to strive for consistency within the region on issues such as agritourism, farm worker housing, water management, urban growth boundaries, emergency planning, and others. It's also an opportunity to acknowledge the unique characteristics between the different agricultural centers within the entire region. The engagement for the Agricultural Strategy Background Report is being held several ways. We have conducted stakeholder meetings with the RDCO's Agricultural Advisory Committee, with the Regional Growth Strategy Steering Committee, and with the RDCO Board. These meetings have provided an important opportunity for us to inform these groups of the project and to receive their feedback and direction on information that would be important to consider in developing the background report. We are also hosting this open house on November 3rd, and there's an online survey that is open to everyone, and it is online through the Your Say website, and it is open until November 15th. We are also conducting stakeholder interviews with a target of 15 to 20 overall. These have taken place thus far with producers, with representatives of industry groups, with government staff, and with representatives from First Nation communities within the Central Okanagan region. We would like to present to you some statistics that have been developed and assessed through our work on the background report thus far. When we talk about statistics, we are primarily looking at results from the agricultural census, which was published just this year based on 2021 data. We are also looking at the agricultural land use inventory data that was collected about 5 years ago by the Regional District of Central Okanagan in partnership with the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food. And thirdly, we are looking at BC assessment data to explore farm tax status properties. As you may know, agricultural land is primarily held within the Agricultural Land Reserve, which is a provincially designated zone where agriculture must be taken into consideration as a priority use. However, there are also farms and farmland that are technically outside of the ALR, which are still capable of producing agricultural crops. In the RDCO, there are over 27,000 hectares, or over 65,000 acres, of agricultural land reserve land. Of that, approximately 2/3 is being farmed. Over 20,000 hectares or 51,000 acres is actively being farmed. That's being done through over 800 farm businesses or farm properties. As you can see in this map, the hashed green on the map indicates the ALR. There's quite a lot of ALR on the east side of the lake, but also on the west as well. Some of this land is privately owned, and some of it is owned and operated by the Crown and is considered Crown land ALR. In terms of an overview, the top crops, not surprisingly, are cherries, apples, grapes, and hay. And in terms of livestock, cattle is the most common livestock found, followed by horses and then poultry. There are over $187 million of gross farm receipts produced within the region every year. And interestingly, there are over 600 hectares of grapes being grown. 48% of farms are under 4 hectares or 10 acres of land, representing a fairly substantial proportion of farms that are small in nature when compared to other parts of the province. Also, 40% of farms are selling directly to customers. What that means is that these farms are selling either at the farm gate, at farmers markets, or online directly to customers. This cuts out the sense of middleman, and therefore more of a gross profit margin can be returned to the farmer. As you may be aware, there are several fruit processing facilities in the RDCO that support the fruit production sector. And there are over 2 million people who visit the Okanagan each year for reasons directly related to agriculture, indicating potential success in the agritourism sector and opportunities to grow that sector as well. Now we'll showcase some of the mapping that's been conducted so far for this project. The first map is an overview map looking at agricultural use throughout the region. On this map, as previously, the hashed green sections are the agricultural land reserve. The farm use parcels, or parcels that are being used for farming, are the dark green. And you can see there's quite a lot in Lake Country, in Kelowna, in Central Okanagan East, in West Bank First Nation area, in West Kelowna, and in Peachland as well. However, Peachland does not have as much active agricultural land as some of the other municipal partners. On the west side, most of the farmland is held up in Crown land, although not all of it, and so there is less active farm use happening on Central Okanagan West electoral area. Let's zoom in now on the east and the west activities. So on Central Okanagan East, you can see here there are a lot of beef, poultry, grain, and forage happening in the northern part of the region. There's a lot of tree fruits happening in the south part of Lake Country and in much of Kelowna as well. And you can also see some of the small fruits indicated by the purple, which is indication of grapes, for example. We've also made an effort to identify wineries whenever possible, as well as vegetable crops, although those tend to be in the minority for this region. So there's a good mix of both livestock, tree fruit, and mixed agriculture production as well. The area on the map that has been zoomed in is the area within Kelowna, just for context. Now on the west side, again, as I mentioned, there's less active agricultural activities going on in the electoral area. It is beef and poultry in the north, and some mixed agricultural use closer to West Bank First Nation. In West Kelowna, there are some wineries, obviously. There are grapes being produced, fruit orchards as well, and also towards Peachland, there are some tree fruits as well. Our last map is looking at water licensing. This is important to consider when exploring the future opportunities for growth in the region, because so much of agriculture depends on its ability to access water for irrigation and for livestock watering. Recently, the Water Sustainability Act has been enacted, which requires agricultural users to apply for a water license. Some of those water license applications are currently in progress and are therefore not necessarily reflected on this map. The dark blue circles relate to livestock or animal-related water licensing. The lighter blue dots relate to irrigation water licensing, and then the gray dots are related to other types of water licensing. As you can see, there's quite a lot of concentrated water irrigation use along the lake towards lake country and along the lake in West Kelowna. There's also quite a lot of concentrated irrigation water use licenses in and around South Kelowna and up into Central Okanagan East as well. There are, in terms of numbers, 106 active animal and livestock water licenses in the RDCO and over 1,000 irrigation water licenses. Again, this does not include water licenses that are currently within the application process, but it does include both surface and groundwater licenses. I'd like to finish off this presentation by exploring some of the strengths and challenges in the industry that we have heard so far through our preliminary engagement. In terms of strengths, the RDCO offers great soil and growing conditions. There is a strong historic farm knowledge based on families that have been farming for now generations. There are existing pest management programs such as OXR, which help to reduce the amount of pesticides and herbicides being used in agriculture. There are the presence of headquarters for much of the agricultural industry's investment around services and processing. Agritourism is very popular for the Okanagan. There's strong support for purchasing local food and supporting farmers. And there's very close proximity to urban markets, both within the Okanagan, the Lower Mainland, and the ability to ship food elsewhere via the airport in Kelowna. In terms of challenges, there's continuing urban growth pressure, which always creates pressure along the edges of the urban and rural farmland areas. And this can also lead to conflicts between agriculture and surrounding non-farm uses. Climate change is a challenge and associated natural hazards. And even though climate change might offer opportunities for crop extension or new crops being grown, overall there are some serious challenges associated with drought, flooding, and fires. There are ongoing concerns around water scarcity, the need for water conservation, and important water management techniques. Labor in the form of being able to access labor and also house farm workers is an increasing challenge. Costs associated with inputs, fuel, transportation are all increasing due to inflation and other reasons, and that is a challenge for the agricultural community. There are also ongoing issues around bureaucracy and regulations for undertaking upgrades to farms or doing new innovative opportunities for crop production or livestock, and also just simply running a farm takes a lot of bureaucracy. And of course, the land values in the Okanagan are extremely high and is often pushing out next generations from being able to acquire land, even leasing land, and getting into farming, which has impacts on succession planning. And that takes us to the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening, and please fill out the survey. The survey is available on the yoursay.rdco.com website, where you'll be able to find the Regional Agricultural Strategy Project. The survey is open until November 15th. Thank you so much for your attention.